Good morning. This is the latest in our series of oral histories of folks in German Village that have had a lot to do with things that have gone on here. And today we have a very special guest. It's October 2012. Connie Swain. Welcome, Connie.
Thank you. Thank
Great
you, Bill.
to have you here.
Thank you.
And you've had a lot to do with many things in the village. And let me just start and have you go through a little bit of your personal history, where you grew up and how you came to German Village.
I moved here in German Village in 1975 and moved here from Chicago. German Village was the urban environment that existed in Columbus at that time. And so I was in my late 20s, and since I had been living in Chicago. That's what we wanted. You know, we wanted something that felt urban, and so we bought a house. Well, actually rented for a couple years and bought a house here in German Village.
And your husband, Marshall
He was
Swain.
teaching at the university. He was a professor at Ohio State. And so then we had our daughter here in '79.
And you spent you had a professional career as well, as I understand.
I was a teacher in Worthington.
So you
schools.
commuted between
Yes.
German Village and Worthington for your teaching.
Yes.
So you came in. You came here in 1975.
Mm-hmm.
What? Obviously, you like the urban environment. Tell us
Right.
what else you saw in German Village that attracted you.
It just was warm and friendly, and early on what we realized is it was really easy to meet people and make friends, because I think so many people were coming to Columbus from somewhere else just like us. A lot of the people that were moving into German Village did not really maybe have a history in Columbus, so they were looking for new friends and wanting to make new acquaintances, and it was really fun.
And if we had been here with you in 1975 when you arrived, what was different about German Village compared to how it is here in 2012?
When you ask that question, it's really interesting to me, because my first impulse is not so different. Now, we know that it's a huge difference in that so many improvements have happened to so many properties. All these wonderful restaurants have come to the village, and the park has made such amazing improvements. But somehow, when you ask that question, I feel that the place still feels like the same.
The core of the village was here. It just had to be improved.
Yeah.
I think one thing you mentioned when we were off camera was 3rd Street looked a little bit different in terms of the businesses that were in operation there.
Well, 3rd Street, I think that it didn't look no, it did not look that different. It does not look that different.
Well, you said there were more attorneys' offices in that.
Well, at the time, there were things that were happening somewhere in the 80s where a lot of people were becoming interested in German Village, people from all over Columbus. And one of the things that was an interest was people that were working downtown, particularly lawyers, loved these houses and the size of them, I guess, because they really liked making a house into a law office. That would be one thing. So that was happening quite a bit, and that was one of our issues that we grappled with as an early historic district. The question that people would have is, well, is that a good thing? You know, we want people to come and be in the village and love it as much as we all do, but how should these buildings be used? This is a residential home right now. Should we make it into a commercial? And if it is made into a commercial, what's the best type of commercial property? Would a law office be a good use of that property? So there were a lot of zoning questions that started coming up that some really smart people down here in German Village were asking extremely good questions about the future.
And we're going to get into some of that later in terms of your involvement with the guidelines, but before we do that, I want to take you back to your original involvement in village affairs, which, as I understand it, came about because you were a mother.
Right, right.
Tell us about that.
There were a group of us that had small children here in the village, and we got together because of the kids. And I mean, the kids were really little. We're talking, mine at the time was, 2 or 3 years old when all of us started getting together and trying to figure out how to help each other with our children. Because as I mentioned before, we weren't people that had families in Columbus to help us, So what we did was we would get together and talk about things and things that we would need for our families and the kids. And the playground in Schiller Park was really in poor shape. So we would go out there to the park.
Let me just interject. Who were some of these fellow mothers that you were commiserating with?
Many of them are fellow mothers that are still around, that you know and love.
That's what I want you to talk about.
Elizabeth Willoughby, Janet Druin, a friend of ours that has now moved away a long time ago, Wendy Parker. She was tremendous. But Janet was so involved with Friends of Schiller, and Elspeth all along. Yeah.
All right, well, keep going.
So
Now
we're at the playground. The playground was just a total mess, and so we're trying to figure out, what could we do? I mean, we even talked about, because we ended up doing this, but we said, we can paint this stuff. I mean, it was chipping away, and the swings weren't working, and I mean, you name it, it was a problem. And so we thought, we can, do some of this, and so we made an appointment with the director of Columbus Recreation and Parks. Mel Dodge. And there were a group of 4 or 5 of us mothers. And of course, none of us had ever done anything like this in terms of working on a park or a playground. And he was very encouraging that we work on the park. And we had come up with a name. We'd called ourselves the Friends of Schiller Park.
But this was no incorporated entity or anything. It was just a group of ladies.
No. This is we just made ourselves the Friends of Schiller Park, because that's in fact what we decided to be. And the reason is, when we first started talking about doing the playground, we called a meeting. We put an ad in the newspaper and said, anyone come join us that would like to talk about the park. And so at that meeting, there was this woman that walked in. Her name was Helen Wagner. I think, is it Wagner? Was the Wagner Brewery
I believe
company? So. Well, it was her father that owned that business. So she had a book of photographs. And in that book were all these photographs of Schiller Park and how it used to look. And we were just amazed. I mean, because the park did not look like the photographs that she was showing us.
So this gave you a new vision of what it could look like.
It was just like a lightning bolt that came down and hit us all at the same time. I mean, it was just clear that this park needed our love and attention, and that's what we went about doing.
Another thing you told me was that Mel Dodge seemed to see your group immediately as somebody that, to put it bluntly, he could use too to help further the Columbus Parks.
I think so. I mean, I think that he was encouraged that a group of citizens would come and just say, what can we do? How can we help make this park better and improve upon it?
Because that hadn't happened.
It had not happened. In Columbus, we now proudly have many wonderful friends of parks. But at the time, there had not been. The Friends of Schiller Park was the first group that officially called themselves, the Friends of an individual park.
So at the time that you made this first visit to Mel Dodge, the city was mowing the grass at Schiller Park, but was there much else going on there?
Not much. It had gone into disrepair a bit like the neighborhood. It's the same idea.
So tell us what was not there in Schiller Park that's there now.
Well, right now, when you walk around Schiller Park, just imagine that the amphitheater was not there. The carriage path that's in the inner part of the park, that was not there. It was originally there. I mean, that's what we found it because of Helen's photographs. The lights were not in the park. No lights. The promenade up to Schiller statue and the Huntington Gardens, none of that was there. The Schiller statue himself was as green as he could be, because he's a great old magnificent bronze statue that had never been cleaned. So one of the first things the Friends of Schiller did was we, along with some other groups like the Manicore, we paid to have him taken down and cleaned and put back up. So the Friends of Schiller really, along with the Columbus Recreation Parks, it's been a wonderful partnership for a long time, for over 30 years now. It has been this private-public partnership that people always strive for. That's what this has been. And the Friends of Schiller has been such a significant part of it.
Now, the Friends of Schiller, as you told us, was initially just a group of women who were concerned about their parents, concerned about their children, and it kind of morphed into something much greater.
Right.
At some point, how did it get connected to, as an institution, into the fabric of German Village? Well,
when we began to do fundraising, and then we did some serious fundraising for the park. And there was a master plan developed, lots of those sorts of things. We were connected to the German Village Foundation, which at the time was the 501c3. So, that's how. And
I believe you mentioned Grace Highfield, who's memorialized in the park, was a catalyst of that. Tell us about that.
The Grace Highfield was a woman that lived here in the village, that was very active in the village, and she helped in so many ways. She was probably on the society board. She is the one that decided that she thought that the village needed an endowment fund. They needed to put monies aside for the future. And she also was the one that realized, we had to have the 501c3. And she did that by putting together then a group called the German Village Foundation. And it really worked together with the society. She was a CPA, and she always helped everyone. She helped the society, she helped the foundation. She was very much a part of the first Oktoberfest. So she really helped us get our finances in order, and she was a great person.
And so, first, Friends of Schiller was part of the German Village Foundation.
Yeah,
then,
right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we now, of course, memorialize Grace Highfield in this area with her own garden area, which includes the Umbrella Girl.
Right.
Are you aware of how that came to be, that she was honored?
Well, Grace was honored for no other reason than that she was such a special person, and we needed to somewhere acknowledge what she had done for the village. And she loved plants, and she loved the park. And her good friend Ann Lilly really helped make all that happen.
Now, once you got rolling with your 501c3 status, then, as you say, you started doing some really serious fundraising in conjunction with the city.
Right. And that's when all these other things came to be.
And I think you said you after you got these photographs together, really kind of galvanized some creative juices on your part, you came up with a wish list.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, this was very early on. The Friends of Schiller put together a wish list that we sent around to everybody, and we used all these wonderful photographs that we found from Helen's book, and we asked for all kinds of wonderful projects. And most everything in this book has now happened over the years.
Can you
see
the front of this?
Can you
John?
see?
He can zoom in on it. This is
Oh,
kind of
you?
an important document
Okay,
in German village
okay.
history.
Can you see it, John?
Yes. Looks good.
We're here with John Clark, who's our videographer.
Okay. This was something Friends of Schiller put together, and then, of course, we worked with the recreation parks on getting permission to send this out, to have some of these things purchased that we wanted. For example, we wanted to clean the statue. We wanted to find the umbrella girl or replace her.
Let's show a picture.
Can you
of
see
the
any of
umbrella
these?
Girl. And
Of course, you're going to be, you'll be out there, right?
yes, but this is apparently the picture of the umbrella girl, the original one, not the one that's there now, that was in the park, I think from the 1870s on until it was stolen in the 1950s. Is that your understanding?
That's our understanding, yeah.
Although the umbrella itself was an add-on at some point after the original statue was created.
John, for the future, here's a bigger picture of her you can use sometime.
Okay, thank you.
And just out of curiosity, you put on here, it says, bring the umbrella girl back home. Once a focal point of Schiller Park, the girl with the umbrella fountain disappeared during the Depression era. You can give this treasure back to Schiller Park for all to enjoy.
We looked for her. We put in ads in the newspaper saying this, and we put her photograph in there, and we just asked, is there anyone that has seen this umbrella girl anywhere around? Because what we were wondering was maybe she had been taken, because the stories were after the World War II, quite a few things from Schiller Park were missing. We were thinking maybe she had disappeared at that time. Maybe someone had taken care of her or found her somewhere. So we were hoping to find her and never did.
I saw on a website somewhere that it actually turned up missing in the 50s. This indicates that it was in the Depression era. So we'll have to.
We don't.
This is part of oral history.
Yeah, we don't
always
know. I don't know. I really don't know. We do know that in Helen's photographs, all these little kids would be standing in front of the umbrella girl. Somehow the umbrella girl drew families to the spot when they had kids going to recitals, and they would have on their little ballet dresses, or do you know what I mean? And the little kids would be standing in front of the umbrella girl having their photograph taken.
It says on here a price tag of $3,000 to $5,000 that apparently was estimated. What did that represent? Did you think that was going to be the cost of a new sculpture? Or, I
man,
think it'd be much more than that.
You're asking some hard questions there.
I know sometimes.
What did we know?
Yeah, right.
I mean, we were doing the, hey.
Put a number out there.
We were putting a number out there. We were just saying, you know what, we have some needs out here, and jump on board. So I'm not sure how we came up with any of these figures, to tell you the truth.
Well, tell us how then all these various projects evolved.
I'm trying to see what some of these. Polish the Poet.
Happen.
Polish the Poet. Here it says we were asking $2,300 for bronze finish. Blah blah blah. I'm sure we called the bronze people and said, so how much does it cost to, do a statue 11 feet by whatever? Because I just am saying that we had never done anything like this before. And this was all just real new, and we were just trying our best. For example, here's a park bench for $550. Well, I think people are paying, what, $1,200 now for them or something? So maybe it wasn't that far off.
How did you raise the money?
Oh gosh, well, all kinds of different ways. I mean, all sorts of things. One thing's when we first started, we just would, send out letters and say, do you want to add a tree in the honor of someone in your family to the park? So originally we did not have a master plan. We knew that there were some things like benches or trees and things like that we wanted.
Was this just done over time, or was there a big rush of activity all at once to get this?
Over time, and we had to learn how to do this. It was really fun. I mean, we sold brats. Our kids sold lemonade at the house tour, and they wore their Friends of Schiller T-shirts, and they had big signs that said, all proceeds go to the Schiller Park. I mean, so all that $20 they made that day.
Did the Friends of Schiller have something to do with the amphitheater coming into being too?
Well, that was brought in, and with the master plan, then, oh gosh, there's so much. There's so much to think about. And I know that a good person for you to talk to about the master plan is Janet. She really worked hard on that.
So was this the master plan, or was there more?
Well, this came before the master plan,
Okay.
but we realized pretty quickly that what we were doing here was a huge, huge undertaking. And so we had to make a plan. You couldn't just willy-nilly put these things in the park. We had to really make a plan on where everything needed to be, and then you could figure out those big expensive things like the amphitheater. Once you knew that you had these big projects to do, then we could figure out how to hone in on the individual projects.
And this was all done in conjunction with the city as well?
Oh yeah, everything was, because this is their park. Nothing can happen in this place without their approval. They are the owners of this park.
Right.
Yeah, not the Friends of Schiller. No one that lives in German Village. This is the Columbus Park. So everything that happens in there has to go to the commission, and the owner is the Columbus Recreation Parks, so they're the ones that has to take everything to the commission, any improvements that go in there. Yeah.
So as far as the other improvements, Huntington Gardens and the Highfield Gardens, what were those specific projects that were part of this master plan?
Yes, all of them. And if we pulled out the master plan now, I think you would be very pleased to see that majority of the master plan has been done. And what the Friends of Schiller exists now, still to this day, has many new things to do. And in addition to that, we have maintenance of these beautiful things that we put in there.
Once you have it, you got to keep it.
Once you have it, you've got to keep it. And that's the thing that we really need to all now be aware of, is all this fine work that has been going on for all these years, it needs to be maintained and taken care of.
I noticed the gazebo on the front cover of this. Was that project abandoned, or is?
The gazebo, my thinking is, what if I can recall, which sometimes, is the amphitheater is where the gazebo was. And the amphitheater became so significant because the Actors Theater group was put into Schiller Park, and Mel Dodge did that a couple years right after Friends of Schiller started. He said, well, I would like to do Shakespeare in the Park, and we would like to do it in Schiller Park.
So that was his idea, or at least.
I think he was the one that's had this opportunity, and he saw that this was all coming together at the same time. So it was a thing of beauty that we got Actors Theater.
So one thing you mentioned to me was, while Mel Dodge and the city might have seen the Friends of Schiller as something that could be useful to him.
Sure, yeah.
On the other hand, you folks helped galvanize Mel Dodge and the city to do things that might never have been done.
It was really wonderful.
And you spoke of that public-private partnership.
Yeah, it's been a big success. And all of German Village, all of Southside, Columbus, all of Columbus should really be proud of Schiller Park, because it is the second oldest park in the city, and it is used by people from all over the South Side, downtown. It's a beautiful place, and it's extremely important that it is always maintained and taken care of. And the exciting thing, I feel, is that Friends of Schiller will be able to do some wonderful things for the park in the future. And we don't know what that is. But they're going to be there.
Well, somebody who watches this tape, we hope 25, 30 years from now will know that. And
I
they can look back on
I would like to know what those things are going to be. And I'm hoping that anyone that watches this tape also will realize that they are a friend of Schiller Park. I mean, it doesn't take anything to be a friend of Schiller Park other than that you love this park, and work for it.
Connie, I think another thing you mentioned is you're not just somebody who's been involved. You've believed in German Village enough so that you've made a financial investment, you and Marshall, over the years here in properties.
Right,
Tell us
right.
about
Well,
that.
we've had a business here of renting apartments, buying properties, and fixing them up and renting them. Yeah, that's what we've been doing for quite a long time.
So you've been part of that renovation
Yes,
effort yourself,
yes,
too.
yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, another extremely important part of the history of German Village is the work of the commission and the guidelines that have been promulgated. And you've had some involvement in that too.
Right.
Tell us about
yes,
that.
Yeah. I was involved with working with a group that did the German Village guidelines. When we wrote the guidelines, had them published, and that was a big accomplishment for German Village, because the architectural guidelines that came out of this publication that we did were probably at the time one of the most significant books that was written in America on guidelines for architectural review boards. We studied all the architectural review boards. We had everyone that was doing this sort of thing from across the country send us what they could. So we got our hands on as much as we could get our hands on, and we studied it. And there was a large group of people that that had been on the commission, that were architects, etc., that worked on these guidelines. So
Going
it's a big
back,
deal.
when you arrived in German Village, there was a German Village Commission, so that early work had been done. But I think what you told me was, although there was some ordinances pertaining to historic district, there wasn't much in the way of actual guidelines like on windows and shutters and doorways and
Right.
roof materials
Right.
that there is now.
Right. The commission, the people on the commission, they knew these things. They had been working on it for a long time. The architects that were on the commission, they understood all of this. But what we realized that was missing was the people that were coming in, like you and me, coming in to say, we want to, make an improvement to our house. We weren't familiar with what we needed to do or what the commission wanted us to be thinking about.
And I think you also said there were some, you kind of had to go through some philosophical discussions amongst the people who were involved in this project with exactly what you wanted to do.
Right.
And I think,
Like zoning, are you thinking?
well, that
issues.
and additions, what an addition should look like as compared to the, I mean, I guess now you want to differentiate your addition from the original home.
Right, right.
That sort of thing, I guess,
Right.
had to be.
Well, there was so much that the commission was grappling with those early years, and what we did with this book, the commission had been around for about 25 years. So basically what we were doing is we thought, okay, now we've been here for 25 years. Where have we come to, and where do we need to go to? And those were really difficult things to know, because there weren't other historic districts in Columbus then. Probably Victorian Village. I'm sure Victorian Village was there then. But but there were so many things that we just didn't know. You know, what's our next step? What should we do?
And circling back, early in this interview, you talked about 3rd Street had changed a little bit. You had more offices coming in, and should there be a commercial area as opposed to interspersing the businesses, and some of that philosophy had to be
There was
dealt
just
with
so
too.
much to that, Bill, because our zoning, we do not have commercial. Our only commercial street in German Village to this day is Livingston. We do not have a commercial street. But what we do have is we have commercial properties throughout the village. That has been the essence of the village forever, was that you could go down to the corner and get some groceries or, whatever was there.
I live next to a
Yeah,
bar.
yeah. So you know exactly what I mean. So it's always been interspersed throughout the village. But then you have a street like 3rd Street that seems to be the commercial, because it is the main street. It's going straight down the dead middle. It ends up at Schiller Park. It's an important street to us. So one of our questions was, well, how do you take care of a street like that? What do you do with a street like that? You're talking about whole zoning issues. The whole thing about, think back to what the commission had to deal with when they first started. There weren't any garages around here. You can probably count on one hand those little ones that you've seen that are the little one-car garage for a little tiny, whatever they used to look like. So they had to figure out, where do the garages go? What should they be looking like on the lot? The lots are small. There are no curb cuts for the garage. So many things that this commission had to deal with on how to help keep this place looking historic, but yet have people live here and enjoy it and have enough room and have room for their car and have room for, friends to come visit. The issues that the commission have grappled with through the years is just incredible.
You said there was a specific event that helped direct your thinking about what the guidelines should look like when you got this project started, right?
Now, what do you mean?
Talk about this symposium.
Oh, you mean why we...
That helped, I think you said that was important in the development of the guidelines.
Oh, okay. Well, what happened was we had a group of people, because what we're talking about, we wanted to know what, excuse me here. We wanted to know, what do we do about all these questions that we have? And I think I had already mentioned somewhere around here that we went out and reached out to other communities, other historic communities from all over the country. Right. And we invited them to come here and have a conference to talk about, what are you doing about these issues? What are these kinds of issues that are coming up for you? And the similarities were huge, and we learned so much from each other, and we had consultants come in and work with all of us. And two of the things that came out of that conference that was really a big deal was, they said, you all need to help people know more about what they're doing with their homes. You need to develop some guidelines that people can really use. So that's how we got that idea.
And this is this is the first national symposium of historic communities that was held in German Village in 1986. You've shared this with us, this poster.
Yep.
And there it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped you get started on focusing on guidelines.
Yes, and then the other thing they told us to do, besides the guidelines book, they said you all really could use a historic preservation officer, because we had so many projects going on and so much happening in this village that we could use someone here that could help us. And that's how we ended up with German Village Society having a historic preservation officer.
So who was the project director for this effort?
Me.
Tell us
But let me tell you,
that project.
but there were all these people that really knew this stuff. That's where this book came from, is all these commissioners that have been on the commission. I was never on the commission. So I just helped, you know, people get together. In my living room, probably, is what I did.
And tell us about can you tell us a little bit about the effort that went into creating these guidelines and how they evolved?
Well, first of all, the name German Village Guidelines is important, because when we did our research, what we discovered was some people call it a standard. So with some of your work, you might be familiar with this. And what we realized early on is we weren't trying to develop a standard. We were trying to just do a guideline. We were just trying to give you as much assistance and help as we could, because we knew, or we think we knew, that materials are going to change every year. New ways of doing things are going to happen. New attitudes are going to happen. And so this is just to help guide you along.
And the commission, too.
And the commission. It helps guide the commission, right.
So there was flexibility built in.
Flexibility was built in. The first page of this book says that very thing. It says, this is a guideline. These are just ideas that are working now, but you know, the commission has to keep rethinking and redoing. And I know that they've redone these guidelines. Oh heavens, you know, there's a whole, I mean, they're all different. Well, not all different maybe, but you know what I mean. They have improved on this so much.
Who were some of the folks that were instrumental in the development of the guidelines?
Well, Ann Lilly is someone that sticks in my mind. Mike Rosen, who was on the commission forever, he did so much work to it. There were just tons of people. Architects that were doing work down here. I think of Damon Baker, for example, that had all kinds of input. Nancy Ritchie and Jeff Darby wrote the book. So they did all of the collecting of the information and all the photographs. Jeff took all the photographs. And, you know, so it was a big group of people.
Then they had to be submitted to the city for approval.
Yes, the city had to approve it. Mm-hmm.
Was that a complicated process?
Well, I think that, you know, I'm not really sure what the city's attitude, because we put things down here in black and white, and you know, sometimes maybe people aren't happy with that, and just in that we did this tremendous document, and now it was something that our architectural review was using this, and you know, my guess is that over time the city became very grateful that this was here, because I am sure that over time they started incorporating what came out of here into their guidelines.
Aside from just the people that were working on the project, did you have to go through a public hearing type, getting input from people in the village as you did this?
All along, yeah. All along there was input. Yeah.
I want to ask you about one improvement to the park in particular, because we're going to do a later interview of the sculptor of the Umbrella Girl. Mm-hmm. Tell us about how you chose the sculptor, Joan Wobes,
yes,
and how she got involved, which I guess was a donated time on her part. Tell us how that happened.
Well, you know what? Talk to Janet about that in this way, because I believe, as I recall, which, you know, some things get a little fuzzy.
Sure.
But as I recall, Janet, she thought of her as a person that was doing, she was doing and is a great artist. And after we realized that we could not find the Umbrella Girl, and we weren't going to find her, in fact, what Joan has done is just more magnificent than anything. I mean, I love the Umbrella Girl. She's just beautiful.
And when we talk,
so talk to Janet about, you know, where how she put those two people together, or that together.
And another project, the lovely Huntington Gardens, which are
Oh, yes, they're a thing of beauty.
So wonderful.
Right.
Somebody had to get the Huntington involved, I guess, to sponsor that. Tell us about that, what you know.
Well, I think that on the master plan, we had the concept of the promenade, all the bricks and so forth, reaching up to the Schiller statue. And then, along came people that were willing to put work into that garden. And, Bert Stevens comes to our mind as, she has worked tirelessly to get the garden looking the way it is. And she has all of her group.
I understand Dorothy Brownlee was instrumental
in bringing the Huntington.
Helping.
Right.
Getting the Huntington to help.
Right. Well, there was that combination of the Vopes and Schiller and the German culture and all of that came together. Yes, and Dorothy really helped with all of that. Yes, and worked with Bert with that.
Yes, and I guess Mr. Lopes is of German extraction.
Yeah, well, that was where so much of that came from, because he was so incredibly interested in helping the park. Yeah, because of that.
I try to ask everybody who's been around the village a while.
Yeah.
Tell us about Fred and Howard.
Oh my goodness, where do you begin? Well,
Your impression.
The energy was just tremendous. And fun. I mean, they just would think of fun things to do. I mean, nothing was just ordinary. Ordinary.
Can you remember an example?
I can't, I'll think of it as we talk. But I wanted to mention the Hausfrau Haven. That is where their business was.
Yes.
And Howard was always behind the cash register. Fred was running around. And if you wanted to know anything about what was happening in the village, you go to Hausfrau Haven, because they knew everything that was going on. And so that was pretty much where that was the center where everybody used to go. We didn't have meeting house and stuff like that. So the Hausfrau Haven was a wonderful place to go and find out what was happening in the neighborhood, because Howard and Fred knew something about everything. And let me think, what are some of the, Fred was willing to just take a chance and do something. Let's just do it. And so Fred didn't sit around and think about doing something forever and, putting it off. We just would do it. So I'll never forget, we used to talk about the brick streets and the horrible shape they were in all the time. That was just something, it was just a discussion, seemed like a nightly discussion. And so one time Fred and Pat Grossig, oh my God, she had this great idea of, didn't we plant a tree in a pothole? Isn't that how that went?
I've heard that story.
Yeah.
And they threw a party around it or something.
Well, yeah. And so, we were all out there planting this tree, and of course, Fred had called the newspapers and saying, well, okay, fine. If you're not going to do something about the, what streets, then I guess we'll just start landscaping them or something. So they planted the tree in the pothole, and it was hysterical.
Making fun of
hey, what are we going to do with this hole? Let's just, we can make this hole look a lot prettier if we put a tree in it. So that's the kind of stuff they would do. And then
activism with humor.
Oh my God, yes. And so then, so who doesn't want to be a part of that, right?
Yes.
And so then all of a sudden you've got, when we're doing the streets, so then somehow that hole, can't remember the exact, but then the next thing I know, we've taken bricks, I think we're over on Mohawk, and a whole bunch of bricks have been taken up. The city did it. City helped pull the bricks up. We're cleaning the bricks. There's a photograph of Grace Highfield, Ann Lilly, somebody else, cleaning the bricks, and guess what else? There is a picture of Kasich there. The mayor at the time was Buck Reinhardt, and I think he was like ROTC or something, and he had on his uniform. He's there in his white uniform. Everybody else has got the big, working on the bricks. This is what Fred used to do.
Fantastic.
And it was wonderful. So,
You mentioned the meeting house. Were you involved in any way in
the building of it or
acquisition
getting,
that?
no, I was not. I
But-
was not.
Tell us, at some point after Friends of Schiller, which you've been so much involved with,
Mm-hmm.
it was in the foundation and then it folded into the society when that merger occurred? Is that how that
Right,
happened?
yeah,
Okay.
right. That's how that happened.
Well, Connie, you've been a very important person here in German Village in your time, and you have a lot to be proud of. But what is your proudest moment here or achievement in German Village as far as your involvement?
Boy, I don't know. I can't really say. It's just, German Village just is, I feel like it's a part of me and I'm a part of it. Do you know?
Yeah, that
I mean,
says a lot.
it means so much to me, and all the people here mean so much to me.